Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Corner. Welcome to Art Regner's video blog for FoxSportsDetroit.com. I am feeling a little bit better today, but I have been sick for well over a week now, and I do apologize because I have every intention of doing these virtually almost every day, but unfortunately, my health has not been where it should be, but I do feel good today, and as always, I don't know what's going on with my hair, so let's just get to it, shall we? Well, certainly we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions and what has happened over the this season. They're now 4-8. As you know, I've really started to be questioning Jim Schwartz and Martin Mayhew forever. I think the important thing to remember is when Martin Mayhew was given his job along with Tom LaWand, it was on an interim basis, and they never left. And the Lions never had a search. They just, and you could tell once Matt Millen was fired. And I was on the radio then, and I said, hey, look, these guys are going to stay, and they did. Now, obviously, I'm not sure. Tom LaWand seems like a good guy. He's done great jobs with Ford Field, and I guess he's in charge of the uniform. I would go back to the old letters and get black off the uniform and black off the face mask. Put the Honolulu blue back on. If you want to go to an alternative jersey, go to all silver with Honolulu blue accents. I think that thing would sell, and I think it would look great. Okay, that's about as far as I'm going to go with Tom LaWand and what he does for the Lions, who I do think is fairly a competent man. Martin Mayhew, as I said, he's the second in command. Matt Millen's second in command, and I think you can tell now that kind of the luster off he and Jim Schwartz has gone off. And I know that today the Detroit News had a big article about Schwartz and Mayhew on the clock. Well, I've been saying that forever. So my point being is this. After the game on Sunday, Jim Schwartz was angry and he was upset. And when he started laying out the litany of mistakes that the Lions made, I time traveled back to the old general himself, Robert Ross, and I swear I thought that Jim Schwartz was going to say, "You think I coach that stuff? I don't coach that stuff." But he didn't. But he became close. So what does that mean? It means good old arrogant Jim Schwartz, the man whose biggest fan is Jim Schwartz, he's his own biggest fan, is starting to crack. There's no doubt about it. He was lionized. They were all lionized. Welcome to Detroit, fellas, and see the kind of crap that we've been putting up with from this organization. Matthew Stafford's look after that game was priceless. He was shell-shocked. He was absolutely shell-shocked. He couldn't believe it. The Lions walked off in disbelief. Now, it's okay if I'm Lions free and a lot of fans go on and off their bandwagon. Because what I think seems to happen, it's like a metamorphosis, is that even though they're not responsible for the utter embarrassment that this franchise has been for decades, sooner or later, I think it creeps up into their psyche. And what happens is, as great of football players as they may have been, and as competent of coaches as they may have been, I really think they start second-guessing themselves. They go against maybe their own coaching philosophy, the general going for two, Marty taking the wind. I mean, things that just aren't really good football decisions. And I think that's why the Lions have been pathetic forever. And I think that that's going to continue. But I hope not. I think our biggest problem right now, if you follow the Detroit Lions, whether you're Lions free or not, and I do not have an emotional attachment to this team, I think the thing that we really have to look at this point is that hopefully their very good and star players want to continue here in Detroit. Now, I know Calvin Johnson is signed for, 8 more years or 7 more years after this year, which should be a contract that makes him a Lion for life. But remember, their best player of all time got so tired of losing and got so tired of the incompetency that he walked away in Barry Sanders. And Calvin Johnson, to me, reminds me a lot of Barry Sanders. Extremely talented, shows up for work, plays over, gives you 100% each and every game, but is fairly unassuming. That's just his nature. That's just his personality. Matthew Stafford, I think, still can be a great quarterback. Maybe Scott Linehan needs to go. Maybe they need to revamp their offense. But the problem is that Martin Mayhew has not really built a great football team here. They're not as talented as he thought he was. But again, and that's been my problem, I guess, with this current Lion regime, is the audacity of being so arrogant that nothing else seems to matter and they're above reproach. Well, that's not going to cut it. Not here in Detroit. So, again, we've got to hope that Martin Mayhew does know what he's doing. Jim Schwartz can grow up, as I said last video blog, and actually be a professional coach. I have serious doubts about Jim Schwartz. I just do. I think his attitude, he's his own biggest fan, as I said, but he's his own worst enemy. He's got to take control of this team, and maybe he can't do it. And Ndamukong Suh, that whole Colts thing, I think, was a bunch of BS, really. This kid can't catch a break, but, he's like the boy who cried wolf to a certain degree. He's not going to get a break based on his reputation. Nick Fairley, I think Nick Fairley's playing really, really well, and I like him. But we've got to make sure that this core group of Lion players hopefully don't start thinking, oh my God, I'm playing football for the Detroit Lions and it's never going to work. If that mindset starts to set in, then this current group of players is doomed like every other group of players that we've seen for the last 50 years. Whatever it is, they start thinking about it and they start saying to themselves, my God, this isn't going to work, is it? And that, my friends, is the worst thing that can happen. We cannot allow the Detroit Lion players to give up on themselves. But then it's out of our control. That's why management is so important. And the big question that we have to ask ourselves as fans, and the Fords have to ask themselves as owners, are we really going in the right direction? Are Mayhew and Schwartz the guys? Do we really need black on our uniform? No. All right, that's just me, my aesthetic thing. But anyway, and that's really a serious question right now. Because I think this team is on the verge of collapsing. And if they do collapse, they may never reach their full potential as a team or as individual players here in Detroit. And that is really a shame, because we have seen very good football teams and very good football players, at least in the beginning when their regime started or when their career started here in Detroit, only to collapse under the weight of the organization's incompetence. So that's why, again, it really falls on the shoulders of ownership, and junior and senior have to make really hard decisions. Is Jim Schwartz the guy to lead this team? Is Martin Mayhew the guy to build this team? And right now, I'm not so sure. Doesn't look too promising. But I'm not there every day. I don't know how that organization works. I only know that the Lions haven't worked for a long time. But it does appear that they have some foundation and some building blocks. But whether those players are going to be able to get the job done and even want to stay here in Detroit, well, I think it's teetering on the brink, as I said, of collapse. So ownership, not only ask the tough questions, but make the tough decisions. And maybe, just maybe, that someday all of us here in Detroit can say, I'm a Lions fan and I'm proud. Because that's just not the case, let's be honest. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Art Regner's video blog. We'll see you in the Sports Corner real soon. I don't know what's going on in the NHL. We'll get into that. Heisman, all kinds of things. Bowls, Big Ten. Are they going to keep expanding? There's so much to talk about. So as I said, we'll see you again very shortly. And, I'll tell you what, when you've been sick and you start to feel good, you get this shot of adrenaline. And I just feel great today. But anyway, we'll talk to you again. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.